Hi, I'm Fanny.
Hi, I'm Jace.
Welcome to the Freelance Creative Exchange, where every episode we speak to a freelancer about freelancing and the gig economy.
And today, our special guest is Wesley from the LaSalle College of the Arts.
Yeah, Wesley is a lecturer at the LaSalle College of the Arts. He's also a filmmaker, and he has just released his full-length documentary, I Want to Go Home. And he has made his world premiere at the prestigious film festival and was one of the 10 entries shortlisted to compete in the BIFF's Wide Angle Documentary Competition.
Yeah. So, Wesley, thank you for joining us on the show today. Yeah. Maybe you'd like to actually share with our audience a bit about yourself and the background and introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. My name is Wesley. I'm a lecturer at LaSalle College of the Arts. I've been there for the past 5-6 years. And other than teaching, I also do films and I try to direct as much as I can here and there. But mainly I'm interested in writing, the different forms of writing, whether it's script writing or writing more on the literature side, whether it's like a novel or short story, or maybe if it's a play. So writing is something that I'm quite passionate about.
Right. And Wesley recent project, I Want to Go Home, was actually a huge, I would say, success. And congratulations on the book and also on the documentary. Would you like to share with us a bit about the book and documentaries on I Want to Go Home?
Sure. I Want to Go Home is the story of Mr. Takamatsu. So how it came about was about 4 years ago. I read an article an online article about his story saying he lost his wife during the 2011 tsunami, and since then he's been diving in the sea every week to search for her. So when I read this online article, I was really inspired by him, and I wanted to find out why is he still diving. So I wanted to do a book about him. The main reason is to share his story with more people. Hopefully they can be inspired just as how he has inspired me.
Right.
So the book was always the primary project. But as I got to meet him and as the project went on its way, a documentary kind of had to be made in order to get the project rolling. So that's how the documentary came about as well. So there's two things, but they're both kind of different. The book is more of my experience with meeting him, while the documentary is more of a profile piece on Mr. Takamatsu.
Right. So how long did you spend in Japan with Mr. Takamatsu on this project?
For this project, the good thing is that even before going to Japan, we talked over email for a year. So we would talk every week and I would ask him questions just to get to know him. And then eventually when I had enough funding to go and meet him, I could only spare about one week to actually be with him in Onagawa due to work.
Right.
So, but 1 week was kind of enough because prior to that I talked to him for 1 year. So when I met him, it was like I kind of already knew him. Yeah. So it helped a great deal.
Right. So how about the language? Do you meet with any challenges or any difficulty in terms of the different language that you are conversing in?
Mr. Takamatsu only speaks Japanese and doesn't really understand English. And I speak English, I don't understand Japanese. So when I was embarking on the project and when I was to email him, I realized, okay, we won't understand each other.
Right.
So I had to find a translator to help us translate our messages. But at that point in time, I don't have any funding to do the project, and also neither did I think it would be a project. At that point in time, my main aim was just to talk to him. And so I happened to find a friend's friend who she's based in Melbourne, but she used to be from Japan, and she decided to help out for free to help to translate all our emails. So it's a bit tedious because before I could email Mr. Takamatsu, I would go through Miki, who's the lady who does the translation, and then she'll send it back to me, then I'll send it to Takamatsu, then he'll send it back to me, and it'll go back and forth all the way for 1 year. Until today, we're still talking in this way. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So until today, you're still in contact with Mr. Takamatsu. Yeah. Oh wow. Does he know the success that your documentary has made? In the different regions.
In a way, because we're friends on Facebook, so he always says on my posts about it. Yeah. So yeah.
So he's aware that he's actually a star right now.
Not really a star, but yeah, he does know his story is shown in different countries. So,
right.
I guess the thing about people in the creative industry is, be it freelancers or like yourself, a lecturer, is how do they find time to juggle the day job or as a freelancer your projects and something which they want to pursue of their passion.
Yeah.
So during that time, what was the motivation? How do you because it takes takes place over a year. How do you keep constantly motivating yourself to finish and complete the project?
I think for me, it can be difficult to juggle, depending on the nature of the project. So I try to choose projects where I can work independently. For example, writing a script, and it's just me doing it at my own time. It's more difficult if you want to work on a production with 20 people and it has to be on these dates of a shoot. And so I need like that flexibility. So for this project, it also helps when you have the support of the people around you who understand that, okay, you need time. But I think at the end of the day, all of us have like 24 hours in a day. And there's only so much we can stretch some parts, but which means that many things have to be sacrificed along the way as well. So maybe, okay, you can't play that video game you wanted to play, or you can't meet up with your friends who are meeting up this week because you have to do something else. And so you need to have like loved ones and friends who kind of understand, like, okay, you might need a little bit more time at this stage.
But you also need to have the discipline, right?
Yeah.
To actually meet the timeline, all this. So do you set yourself timeline for this project, or actually it's kind of like a loose timing, depending on what parts you can put together?
But what
for
I'm
the
interested to know
productions?
is what's the driving force.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times we started something then we don't complete. I mean, yes, we understand. But what was the driving force for you to really complete the project? And not just the documentary, but
Also
it's
a
also
book.
Yeah.
I think for me, doing all the small independent projects, I get frustrated. Even now, I'm working on something, and I get frustrated because I feel I'm not doing it fast enough. It's very slow. It's taking 3 years to do something which, if I just did it by myself, and had all the time, maybe you can take just 6 months. So it's frustrating, but it's something you just have to accept in life. Yeah. But for this project, I think when I was doing the project, I just had. I think prior to this project, it was like my first feature documentary. And before doing this project, I would go to organizations to pitch ideas, and usually they get turned down, and those are like feature ideas.
Right.
And then the project gets like pushed behind. I never think about it again. So that happened like 2, 3, 4 times. And so I was speaking to a friend, and this was the project I wanted to do. So I brought this project to the organization to pitch again, and they turned it down again. So I was like, oh no, I don't have any funding, which means maybe this project won't happen. And I was speaking to a friend about it. His name is Bitiam. So and he's part of this organization called 13 Little Pictures. So he told me, even if you don't get the funding, you should really just push ahead with this project and just find a way to do it. So that's why I decided, okay, even if I have no funding at that stage, I'll still just push ahead, and maybe things will come into place as we go along, which actually it did at some part.
So what attracted you for this particular project? Is it the situations? Is it that what exactly draw you to have the
A connection.
Yeah, a connection and the commitment to say, okay, even if without funding, right, with my busy schedule, I still want to pursue or to continue.
I think it was his story. When I found out, okay, he's diving in the sea every week to search for his wife, and when I tell friends this story, I'm saying I'm doing this. I'm interested in this guy's story. He's diving in the sea every week to search for his wife, and she was lost during the tsunami 4 or 5 years prior, and they're like, what? What is he intending to find? He's never going to find his wife. She's not there. Logically, she's not there. So, and for me, I'm interested to find out why is he really doing that. So eventually, I did find out.
Yeah.
And I think the project became. I just really wanted to share his story with people because I think the online article that came out, it was around for a day or two, and then people did read it and go, oh, I'm affected by it, but then it kind of went away as well.
Right.
And then people forgot about it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something that expanded on that one-page article, that's a little bit deeper, and for them, hopefully, they might be inspired by it. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a long process, right? So I think as with all freelancers as well, you really have to juggle their so-called the paid job, commission job, and also passion, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of time, I mean, of course, the best scenario is, your passion is also your work, but most of the time it may not be so. So in that sense, right, for freelancers like this who is also juggling with, both their commission work as well as their passion project, would you also advise them to actually, continue? Or rather, I would say, my question is, do you think it's important for creative, right, to also have small projects or, passion project like this to do at the side, right? It on top of what,
do
fuel their
for a living.
stomachs. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's extremely important. I think, for example, myself, I'm teaching filmmaking, and because I'm not working full time as a filmmaker, I need to do small projects to be a little bit more relevant, to know what's going on around, and so I won't be rusty. So I think it's extremely important, and those who might be in similar positions, I think in that aspect, it's important, so that you won't lose touch, and also you won't it won't become one of those things where, I mean, sometimes for some, they may always talk about projects. No, I tend to do this, I want to do this, or I have this big idea, I want to do this and do this. And then when you meet them 4 years later, they're still talking about projects. And so sometimes you kind of need to push ahead and just do it sometimes. But it's not so easy. Because not all the times can you just do it. Because if you want to do a feature fiction film, you can't just, okay, I'm just going to do it by myself. It's not going to happen. So
I mean, we know that you have been submitting short films since you're 19 years old. So in total, do you have a number? How many of such projects have you?
in regards to short films, or
any projects that you have submitted, or any project that you have worked on since you started at the age of 19 till now?
Quite a few, I think. But mainly they fall in aspects of short films and writing. So I did write short films quite aggressively from maybe 19 to the age of 28. So I did, I think, maybe 13 to 14 short films during that period. And then after that, I was doing more writing because it was a little bit more comfortable with my job. And also, I think I was doing my postgraduate studies at the time, which was in writing as well. So I wanted to do more writing stuff at that time. And the other thing was also writing paid. So it helped me pay for my school fees at that point in time as well. So doing short films, it doesn't pay. So if you're doing it as a passion project, it's not going to pay. Unless you're doing a commission film, which takes some time to come by.
Right. So when you first heard that this I Want to Go Home documentary was actually, when the announcement said that your first full-length documentary was accepted, what was your reaction then?
It's kind of interesting because this project, I wanted to do the book, and the documentary came about because just to go backwards a bit, I wanted to do the book. I was trying to find funding to make the book possible, but unfortunately, there's no such funding. There's maybe one or two organizations in Singapore, but they kind of turned it down as well. So there's this organization in Japan called Tokyo Filmex. It's a festival that I attended 8 years ago. So every year they ask me, "Hey Wesley, what are you working on?" They just like to have an update on their alumni. So I'm like, So at that point in time, I told them, actually, I'm working on, I would love to do this project. I'm writing a book about this guy, and he's happened to be from Japan. So I was talking to them about it. And then they said, why don't you do a documentary and we'll fund you a little bit to kickstart the project. So I was like, okay. Then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I can use the money to actually also get the book done. So that's why the documentary had to become like something I had to do. It was never the intention.
Okay. But is it surprise? Are you surprised that,
I was very surprised, because to be honest, I worked pretty hard on the book. I didn't work very hard in the documentary. The documentary is shot by my student I brought up.
So is it just you and the students involved in
and the translator. So he shot everything. It's just one guy who shot it, did the audio and did everything. And he did really well for the circumstance that he was in. It's just by himself. And then I didn't expect so much of the documentary because when I finished editing it, I looked at it and I'm like, I think I could have done better, but because of the lack of funding and the lack of time, I realized
time constraint.
And my mind was always on the book, and documentary was like secondary thing. And so when I finished it, I thought, okay, not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I'm just going to submit it to a few festivals for fun, but I don't think it'll get in, so I'm just going to probably post it on YouTube like in 2 months time if nothing happens. But then so that was my intention to just post it on YouTube. And then 2 months later, I was eating with my wife, having lunch, and then I got a message from Korea on Facebook Messenger, as strange as it is. And he said, "Hi Wesley, I had a contact from someone else. I just want to let you know we might want to choose a film for this and stuff like that." So I was like, what? How can this be? And it is kind of surprising because when I was much younger, making all those short films, every year I would submit it to Busan, hoping to get in. But I'll never get in. And every year when I do the short film, it's always a little bit better. And I always feel like, okay, I think this is my year. I think
yeah, this is
I think I'm
the
gonna
year.
get in this year. No, I'll never get in. And then for once when I felt it's not gonna happen, and then you actually got selected, it's kind of weird. Yeah, so yeah.
So what's our next project?
My next project took me a while to decide what form it was going to be on. So when I was done with this project last June, about 5 days later, then I started on the new thing, and it's a project. It's a story about. So I wanted to choose whether it would to be a film or it would to be a book. And as I went on with it, I decided it's going to be a book. And I'm not sure if I'm going to regret it, but it's going to be in the form of a book. And it's about 1800s in Singapore. And it's about immigrants who are coming to Singapore to have a start of a new life.
Right.
And they have a little bit of a dark past that they're trying to push away. Yeah, so the reason why it's not filmed because it's like early 1800s Singapore and it's like not possible to film. Yeah, so
High
that's-
production budget.
It can be an animations then. Also high production budget. Yeah. So given you have been so active in making short films and things like that, in Singapore. So do you see the change, or rather, I would say, do you see the progressions in our local filmmaking industries from when you first started when you're 19-year-old to till now, right? Do you think that the situation has improved and it make it easier for young people who want to be a filmmaker to become a filmmaker?
I think yes, it has improved. There's a lot more platforms, and in terms of the skills that students have at a early age of like 17, 18 is like vastly different from even not so long ago, like my time, maybe 15 years ago. And if I were to compare the projects I did when I was in poly to the projects my students are doing now at the same level, it's like night and day. And it's not just the technology. It's I think younger individuals now, they are brought up with their iPads, their iPhones, and they're always looking at videos. They're always uploading things on Instagram, and even if it's a video you're uploading on Instagram, that's actually a form of practice that you're looking at, and you're taking photos and you're framing things, something which you may have not done back then. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
their eye for things is way better.
How about storytelling?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about it yesterday. I was talking to some people about it. So I think in Singapore we have a lot of, not just Singapore but other parts of the world as well. We have a lot of advances with technology. Like things look really good.
Yeah. All the filters that you can use so conveniently.
Yeah, everyone can take like a really nice photo. Even short films look really good sometimes without too much effort. But sometimes storytelling still falls short, and I get kind of sad by it because storytelling is something I'm very interested in, and for my postgrad studies I studied television writing, which is quite specialized in a form of writing, and I realized when I was studying it how much skill set was needed for just writing, and it's not just hey, I have an interesting story to tell, and then this is my interesting story. It's not just that.
Yeah.
There's so much structure to it, and I think I think things are changing, but it's going to take some time because if I look back into when I was a student and when I was studying filmmaking, how much time was given onto script writing and learning scripts? I would say almost zero. Yeah. So, and why was it zero? And the reason is because we probably had unfortunately at that point in time, maybe educators who weren't trained in script writing. So how can they teach something which they don't know? Yeah. So hopefully as time goes by, things will change in that area.
Yeah, because even in our field of working with our clients, at CreativesAtWork, trying to match suitable freelancers to our client, I think script writing, even copywriting, come out as one. It came out to be one of the key area that seems to be quite lacking in that sense. So the good ones are really good. So it's like a range, right? The good ones are really good, right? And then there's probably a lot of the young ones, but they're struggling, right? So in terms of this aspect, right, what do you think we can do more to actually help our freelancers to be more aware, right, that there is a need for good storytelling, and where can they go to learn more about it?
I think it would be great to have more script writing courses, but I think at the end of it, there needs to be the demand for these good stories. If not, like there won't be much appreciation or need for it. So I think, for example, maybe like local television, if there was a little bit more necessity for scripts which are, wow, that's kind of groundbreaking and that's kind of pushes things ahead instead of just recycling ideas. And then maybe there would be a need that will slowly trickle down to having these things to kind of fit that. But I think if we just have this, but then it's going like, there's no need for anything, then it's like, yeah, they're learning things and then they won't need to put their skills to use. Yeah.
Right. I know LaSalle is actually running some writing courses
yes,
as
it is.
well
Yeah,
with
correct.
IMDA, right? So so I think that is like a good
One of it, yeah,
move.
yeah.
One of the move. But I think I'm sure more can be done. Right. So we also hear a lot of our freelancers, especially the younger ones, right? They always come out, they want to be a cameraman, right? They want to be a director.
Yeah.
Right. So we seldom hear people who say, I want to be a scriptwriter. So is that the same thing that you see in the students, in the
Cohort,
younger
yeah.
cohort that
Yeah.
you are handling?
It is common because I think director is like the most. I think even for us when we watch a film, we only remember the director maybe, and the actors and director. So if it's a good film, we remember the director. If it's a bad film, like, oh, I don't like that director. But then everyone we just don't remember. We don't remember the producer, scriptwriter, like least remembered. Yeah, so it's one of those things. So I think growing up, you would tend to go, oh, I want to be a director to tell my story. And then, but the good thing is that when my students come in, they have this kind of thought. And then as they go along over the next 2-3 years, they realize, okay, there's these different areas which I actually prefer. I prefer maybe not just producing, but I prefer doing like casting, or I prefer doing art direction or something. Yeah, so I think it takes time because they are not familiar that these roles exist.
Yeah. Do you have students who actually have a very different mindset when they take out the course? Look, so I think one of the I won't say challenges lah, but one of the common issues that we deal with younger freelancers is they always take up media because they thought that is very glam, right? So it's like the Instagram, they want to be a YouTubers, So but then the actual thing about
Operations
of the industry is not like that, and
Yeah.
especially if you are a new entrance into the industry, you must be very prepared to start from the
Hands-on,
bottom, and you have to be very hands-on, right? So do you have a lot of I would say complaints lah, but students coming to you with very different mindset about what is the media industries, and then how do you actually help them to overcome these challenges before they go to the workforce?
For my students, we have when they reach towards the third year of their education, they have they do projects with outside clients to kind of give them a taste of an industry project, what it's like to work outside. And then one of the problems they face is how do I communicate with them? And then they realize, okay, these are like the demands they have. I need this amount of discipline. I can't come late. I have to present properly. And yeah, so that kind of puts them in check at that stage.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think also the good thing about some of my students is that as they progress towards the later stage of their education, they start to by themselves take on freelance jobs. So they also have a taste of how it's like. And I think they also realize, hey, it's quite different from what I imagine it to be.
Right.
But at the same time, it still can be what you want it to be. It's just maybe a little bit different from how it looks. Yeah.
So would you see a growing trend in the students wanting to work for themselves rather than to join a production house, for example, in that sense?
Yeah, there's quite a difference in that a growing trend in students who are going. I just want to be a freelancer and I want to do the jobs that I want to choose to do, rather than okay, I'm going to work in this company for the next 5 years. So I think it depends also on your personality as well. For example, me, I'm quite I wouldn't say a scaredy cat, but I'm quite a safe person by nature.
Right.
So I like to have something a little bit more permanent in my life. Yeah. So like if I were to do just freelance job, I would feel very uneasy. Yeah, but that's me. So it depends from person to person, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So what advice will you give the students who wants to become freelancer?
I think they have to be.
Are you those that belong to like me? Like I will tell them, you have to like really start from ground up, so that you can learn your ropes with with the more experienced freelancers lah. Or
In a way, yeah, I would say that as well. And I think being open to doing being open to doing things which you may not like at first or like for the first few years, and then being just having this goal that okay, further down the line, things will work out better and I get to do things that I really really want to do. But at the starting stage, you may do things which you don't really want to do, but you have to do it because it's a job. Yeah, so I think being able to accept that is important. Putting your dreams aside just for a moment and learn the skill set required. Because I think even in the freelance industry, it's very dependent on people you know to get your next job. Yeah, and how well you do for this one, and then it leads on you to the next one. Yeah, so yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, kind of like life itself.
Yeah. So, but what other things that you think the school can prepare, students who want to actually take on the journey of, becoming a freelancers to actually, learn better, right, before they actually join the industry? Is there certain things that you think we could do better so that we better prepare the students who is ultimately going to join the industries?
They could go for we could get like companies to come down to talk to the students. That would be like career day kind of a thing. That would be good. Doing industry projects also helps. Other than that, perhaps even having like a talk about how to conduct yourself as a freelancer in Singapore would help as well, and what to expect. And also, where are the different platforms you can go to find freelance jobs? That would help as well.
Right. So before there was one session we're just talking to one of our guests about insurance, protections, and all this. So I'm just wondering, being young people, are those some of the issues that's on top of the students' mind? At least for those who want to actually be a freelancers, so or what is actually on their mind of those younger freelancers?
From what I noticed, or maybe from my point of view, I think maybe money and like insurance and all that is probably one of the last things on their mind. And I think that also kind of got them there into liking filmmaking. I think going into the arts, I think your mind is a bit different, and money is like I want to earn the most money. It's not really the thing that's there.
That's on the top priority. Yeah.
If not, you probably would have gone to like engineering or something. So the way they look at life is probably a little bit different already. So I think they're a little bit prepared for certain things lah. But I think when you're younger, finances if you're financially okay, then having not so much money is still okay. But then maybe as you get older, you might want different things in your life.
So at CreativesAtWork, we also hold a freelancing bootcamp 101 where we condense all the topics, the dry topics, all the necessity resources that they need to know into a 2-day workshop, which potentially can help the freelancers lah. But I have a very interesting question which I think is facing a lot of industries, which is working with millennials.
Okay.
I mean, if let's say majority of our students comes out to be freelancer, and they take on like projects, they will work with different generations of freelancers. So what advice do you have for our the older freelancers on how can we accept to work together seamlessly with the millennials freelancers? Do you see any difference?
Yeah, do you see any difference to begin with?
I haven't had the experience of seeing that contrast yet on my side, but so I'm not so sure how to answer that. But I think from what I think is maybe just being accepting to each other is important. Easier said than done lah. But
but I think that is something that not only just in the filmmaking industries, but it's like every industries right now they need to deal with. Everybody need to be inclusive, collaborative. I mean, it's just how the world goes, right?
So it's just for freelancing industries a bit more prominent because you don't work with the same group day in day out. You change the group. So it is important to know how each generation,
think, function.
Kind of the values or the media they're exposed to will shape the way. So if we understand each other more,
I see.
Because right now there's not a lot of crossover. I feel different sets of freelancers still tend to work within their comfortable zone. Which is not good because we don't tap into fresh ideas from the younger freelancers, and then the younger freelancers also find it hard to cross over. So this is one thing that I think the industry has to
Yeah, I think we are at a cross point now, right? Because we have enough of such millennials coming into the workforce, and at the same time, we also have a lot of the senior ones who are still in the workforce, right? So, and because right now they still hasn't really intersect a lot, right? Because those who join production house probably already inherited the mindset because it's been taught down,
been trained.
But it's the freelancers, right, who hasn't joined a production house before. But is working on themselves now. So how do they actually handle situation like this, right? Where different people are working together, and then how do they? But I guess that's the whole reason of filmmaking, because everybody has a ultimate goal at the end. It's like is to accomplish, work together for that film. So at least everybody is working towards the right direction. It's just that daily, how do you handle that kind of conversation? How do you handle that kind of conflicts? But I guess young people being young people, they always think that they are, they are big MIT and things like that, right? So I think, they probably don't think so much about it because it's like, it's just my job, I want to do it, right? So, but probably it's the more senior people who think a lot and maybe read a lot into this, so I think it takes a while for the two generations to come together. Yeah. But I think in terms of filmmaking wise, right, what are some of the advice that you would give to young filmmakers, today? If they are very interested to actually kickstart their first project. Going through, making 13 to 14 short films yourself, repeating the same thing and, knocking on different doors. What are some of the advice that you give to somebody who is just starting out and wanted to try?
For me, I would tell them to do the films that they want to do, because probably at this stage you're doing a film which is not going to be funded. And I find it intriguing because when you get to do a film that you want to do, you can choose any story in the whole entire world. And why would you choose a certain story and look at the story and feel like, why is this important? Why is this something you want to tell? And I think you can join competitions. I think that's great, especially when you're starting in the first few films, to win stuff, not so you can get some money and do more films, and also to get some recognition and some platform to do your work. And then I think as you go along, at least for me, I start to think about it's not just any project, but a project on why I want to tell this project. Is it important to tell this story? And on the technical side, it's more about how difficult is this project for me in terms of its technical or creative aspect. How much will this push me? So for me, when I do a project, if it's something I know how to do, I usually don't do it.
Oh, okay.
So for example, this book, the reason why I wanted to write it is because I did not know how to write this story. I didn't know how do I even put this
together?
So because I did not know how to do it, it's something I want to do. Doing the documentary is something like came like just secondhand. I was like, okay, put this together and it's done. So it didn't take too much from me. And then, for example, the project I'm doing next, that's about 1800 Singapore, and I know nothing about it. And for me, it's the challenge of how do you make 1800 Singapore interesting for someone to read, and how do I write the story in a way where there's some technical aspect to it which I have no idea how to do, where I'm dealing with a lot of flashbacks and stuff, and how do I write that? So it's something I'm still struggling with, and that's what makes me want to do it. So I think the advice to someone is to do something that pushes you to the next level, and perhaps at some stage is to think about, if you could only make one more film in your life, what would it be? And perhaps that's the film you should make once you're more prepared to take that on.
Yeah. That's true. But, we also hear a lot of filmmakers, especially local filmmakers, that, Singapore is a very small market, right? So we are always constrained about critical mass and things like that. And then when we look around the region, like, for example, Indonesia, Thailand, and then for the Korean, Hong Kong, Japan, and all this, right? So their filmmaking seems to have progressed, right, a lot over the last 10 years. And just look at China, right? So it's just kind of, move in a very different directions, and it's like still, charging forward, like never stopping. So comparatively, right, do you think that local filmmakers actually faces more challenges in time to come compared to the filmmakers in Indonesia, Malaysia, and things like that?
I think, fortunately, I think the biggest problem that Singapore has is its size. And because we have such a small population, and if you make a film and if you want a certain amount of people in Singapore to watch it, and even if that percentage went to watch, you still may not even make a profit because we are that small. So every time Singapore makes a film, they need to think bigger. Like, can this film sell in Malaysia? Can this film sell in other parts of the world?
Right.
Because Singapore is really not your target audience. So it's that struggle, like, do I make a film that's for Singapore, very local, or do I make a film that's a little bit more generic for everyone to watch? So I think Singapore's problem is its size, because at the end of the day, filmmaking, in terms of its like feature films and stuff, it's a business, and if it's not going to be sustainable, then it's not going to work. I think there's so much like support you can give it until how long. So but the good thing is that I think they're thinking of ways on how to expand it, how to sell it to other countries, and stuff like that. So that seems to work to some degree.
Is that one of the reasons why you have chosen this team as well? Because it's Singapore, Japan, so it kind of naturally give you an additional market. Or that wasn't the consideration back then?
Strangely, this, although it's Singapore and Japan, it's not been shown in Japan, and the book is not available in Japan as well. And it's not like I don't want it to. So far, no Japanese festival is picking it up. And secondly, no Japanese publisher is picking it up as well. So it's kind of strange. So that was one of my, I would love to share it to the Japanese community, but it's it's kind of not happening. But hopefully one day it does happen. But for this one, I think I didn't really think the issue with this one is that because it's a story about Japan, it's about men in Japan, it was really difficult to get local funding for it, because for their point of view, this is not about Singapore, this is not a Singapore story, why should I fund it? So which is why I kind of understand why they did not want to fund it. But in the end, like for example, IMDA did come in with some amount of funds as well, so that's great.
Right, yeah. I think that's a very interesting, or that's a very good advice for local filmmakers, because I think everybody has some passion that they want to do, certain stories that they want to tell, but as we all know, in Singapore, it's definitely not the easiest way or the easiest place to start. But if they manage to push it through, right, so good things like I Want to Go Home will suffice, and hope more to come actually. Yeah. All right. Okay. Before we actually round up, Wesley, we just have one last question for you, right?
We ask all our guests.
Yes, that's right.
Which is, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh.
If you have one piece of advice to yourself, what would that be?
This is...
Don't worry, take some time to think about it. It's okay.
I would tell my younger self when I was in poly and when I was in after that doing my graduate studies, I did not really do much or any freelance work. It's only in my postgraduate studies that I started to do a lot more freelance work. And I would tell myself to do more freelance work back then, because I think that would have trained me better, to give me more experience. So my experience with like the industry came very, very late in my education and career in a way. So I would tell myself to go ahead and do that. Whether it's for the money or the experience, it's actually really, really, really important. And to make those connections and everything like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think that's also something that we actually also advise a lot of our freelancers or freelancers to be as well, right? Because I think the most important thing is making connections. It's not so much that you want a job because you want the money or things like that, but really, that's how you learn through a project, right? That's for the creative sectors. Yep. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Wesley.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Right. Okay. So we'll do our roundup.
So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Freelance Creative Exchange. Subscribe to iTunes and Spotify and leave us a review.
Also subscribe to our YouTube and leave a comment, because we want to hear what you think. Let us know the questions or the freelancers you want to hear from.
Follow us at CreativesAtWork Facebook page and Instagram.
Join us next time for a brand new episode of Freelance Creative Exchange. Till then,
bye.
bye.
Thanks,
Wesley.